In the vast expanse of the Milky Way galaxy, countless civilizations thrived among the stars. These advanced species had formed what was known as the Galactic Council, a governing body that decided the fate of planets, races, and entire solar systems. They were beings of immense intellect, wielding technology far beyond anything humanity could imagine. To them, Earth was nothing more than a tiny blue dot orbiting an unremarkable star in a quiet corner of the galaxy. For centuries, Earth went unnoticed by these cosmic titans. Humanity's noisy transmissions into space radio waves, television broadcasts, and even attempts at interstellar communication were met with silence. The Galactic Council viewed humans as little more than children playing with fire, too chaotic and primitive to be taken seriously. Some council members mocked Earth's wars, pollution, and division, while others simply ignored it altogether. After all, why waste time on a planet whose inhabitants couldn't even agree on how to live peacefully among themselves? But one day, something changed. It began with a faint signal detected by astronomers on Earth, a message unlike any they had ever encountered before. At first, scientists thought it might be a natural phenomenon or interference from their own equipment. But when the signal repeated itself 3 times over the course of a week, there was no denying its artificial origin. The message was short, simple, and chilling. To the inhabitants of Sol-3, Earth, cease all technological advancement immediately. Your unchecked progress poses a risk to galactic stability. Failure to comply will result in intervention. The world erupted into chaos. News outlets scrambled to report the discovery, governments held emergency meetings, and ordinary people stared up at the night sky with a mix of awe and fear. Was this some kind of prank? A hoax, or was humanity truly facing its first contact with extraterrestrial life and not under friendly circumstances? As panic spread across the globe, leaders convened in secret to discuss their response. Many argued for caution, believing that compliance was the only way to avoid destruction. Others saw the threat as an insult, a challenge to human dignity and freedom. Among those who refused to back down was Dr. Elena Vasquez, a brilliant astrophysicist, an advocate for space exploration. She stood firmly against surrender. "They think we're weak," she said during a tense meeting at the United Nations headquarters. "They see our flaws, our divisions, and assume we'll roll over like obedient pets. But they don't understand us. We've survived ice ages, plagues, wars. We've rebuilt ourselves again and again. This isn't just about technology. It's about who we are." Her words resonated deeply, but the decision wasn't easy. While some nations hesitated, fearing the consequences of defiance, others rallied behind her call to resist. In the end, after days of heated debate, humanity made its choice. Through a unified effort, Earth replied not with groveling or submission, but with bold defiance. The response was broadcast across every frequency imaginable, ensuring that the Galactic Council would hear it loud and clear. To the Galactic Council. Humanity does not bow to threats. If you seek to intervene, know this: we will defend our right to exist and grow. Come if you must, but understand that Earth fights together as one. The transmission ended with a recording of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, the iconic Ode to Joy, a symbol of hope, unity, and resilience. For weeks afterward, the skies remained eerily silent. No ships appeared, no further messages arrived. It was as though the universe itself was holding its breath. People wondered if the Galactic Council had dismissed Earth entirely, or if they were preparing something far worse. Then came the twist. One evening, amateur stargazers noticed strange patterns forming in the constellations above. Bright lights moved across the heavens in synchronized formations, spelling out a single word written in glowing glyphs. Interesting. What did it mean? Had Earth's boldness intrigued their would-be oppressors or enraged them? As questions swirled and tensions mounted, humanity braced itself for whatever came next. One thing was certain: the galaxy now knew that Earth was not a planet to underestimate, and so the stage was set for a confrontation unlike any the stars had ever witnessed. The strange glyph, interesting, hung in the sky like a cosmic Riddle. Humanity watched, waited, and wondered what it meant. For weeks, the world remained on edge, unsure whether the Galactic Council's silence was a blessing or a curse. Governments scrambled to prepare defenses. Scientists worked tirelessly to decode any hidden meaning behind the message, and ordinary people tried to go about their lives despite the looming uncertainty. But then, one fateful morning, the skies above Earth changed forever. It started with a faint hum, a vibration that seemed to resonate through the air itself. At first, people thought it was an earthquake or some kind of atmospheric anomaly. But as the hum grew louder, cities around the globe looked up to see enormous ships descending from orbit. These vessels were unlike anything humanity had imagined. Smooth, sleek, and glowing with an otherworldly light. They didn't attack or speak. They simply hovered there, silent sentinels observing the planet below. Panic swept across the globe. News outlets broadcast live footage of the ships, showing them positioned over major cities like New York, Tokyo, London, and Cairo. The United Nations convened another emergency meeting, but this time the stakes felt impossibly high. No one knew what these aliens wanted or if they even cared to negotiate. Among those called to respond was Captain Marcus Lee, a decorated fighter pilot who had been tapped to lead Earth's newly formed Space Defense Initiative, SDI. Unlike many others, Marcus wasn't paralyzed by fear. He saw the ships as both a threat and an opportunity, a chance to prove that humanity could stand toe-to-toe with beings far more advanced than themselves, whatever they are. Marcus said during a briefing at SDI headquarters, "They're here because of us. Because of what we said. And now it's our turn to show them what we're made of." The first real test came sooner than anyone expected. One of the alien ships, hovering over Rio de Janeiro, suddenly emitted a beam of energy that struck the city's iconic Christ the Redeemer statue. Within seconds, the massive monument began to transform. Its stone surface shimmered, melted, and reformed into something new, a towering crystalline structure pulsating with blue light. It wasn't destroyed, it was rebuilt, as though the aliens were demonstrating their power without causing harm. The message was clear. They could reshape Earth however they pleased, but humanity wasn't ready to roll over just yet. In response, Dr. Elena Vasquez proposed a daring plan. Instead of retreating or retaliating with weapons humanity barely understood, she suggested using creativity and ingenuity to communicate back. Her idea? To project Earth's history onto the largest screens and surfaces available, not just facts and figures, but art, music, literature, and moments of triumph and tragedy. She believed that showcasing the full spectrum of human experience might confuse or intrigue the aliens enough to buy Earth more time. Governments hesitated at first, fearing such a move could be seen as weakness. But when Marcus volunteered his squadron to escort a team of scientists to deliver the projection equipment near one of the ships, the decision was made. If nothing else, it would send a message that humanity wouldn't cower in fear. As night fell over Rio, the operation began. Massive holographic displays were set up around the city, projecting scenes of ancient civilizations building pyramids, astronauts walking on the moon, families laughing together, and artists painting masterpieces. Music filled the air from Beethoven's symphonies to modern pop songs, all blending into a chaotic yet beautiful tapestry of human existence. For hours, nothing happened. The alien ship loomed silently above, its intentions unclear. Just as doubts began to creep in, the ship responded not with destruction, but with curiosity. A smaller craft detached from the main vessel and descended toward the ground, landing softly in a nearby field. Out stepped three figures, their forms tall and slender, clad in shimmering robes that seemed to shift colors with every movement. They weren't armed, but they weren't friendly either. Their faces were expressionless, their eyes unreadable. When a group of human representatives approached cautiously, the aliens spoke not in words, but through a series of melodic tones that resonated directly in the minds of those present. "You defy order," one of the tones translated into English via hastily assembled translation software. "Why do you resist?" Elena stepped forward, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "Because resistance is what makes us human," she replied. "We don't always get things right, but we never stop trying. That's who we are." The aliens tilted their heads as if puzzled by her answer. Then, without warning, they raised their hands, and the projections around the city flickered and shifted. Images of war, famine, and suffering replaced the earlier displays, highlighting humanity's darkest moments. It was as though the aliens were testing Earth's honesty, forcing humans to confront their flaws alongside their achievements. Marcus clenched his fists, ready to act if needed. But Elena held her ground, refusing to look away. "Yes," she admitted, her voice tinged with sadness. "This is part of us too, but so is hope, so is love, and so is the will to keep moving forward no matter what." For a long moment the aliens said nothing. Then, with another series of tones, they turned and re-entered their craft. As quickly as they had arrived, the smaller ship ascended back into the mothership, which lingered for a few more minutes before vanishing into the stars. The encounter left humanity shaken but not defeated. For the first time, Earth had faced the unknown and responded not with violence but with truth. The aliens may have been confused, intrigued, or even disturbed by what they saw, but one thing was certain. They hadn't expected humanity to fight back with ideas instead of weapons, and somewhere out there, among the stars, the Galactic Council began to wonder if perhaps they had underestimated Earth after all. The departure of the alien ship left Earth in a state of cautious optimism. The encounter had been peaceful, but it raised more questions than answers. Humanity's display of creativity and honesty seemed to intrigue the aliens, yet their intentions remained unclear. Were they impressed, confused, or simply gathering information before deciding Earth's fate? In the days that followed, the world struggled to make sense of what had happened. Governments debated how to proceed. Scientists analyzed every second of the interaction, and ordinary people grappled with the reality that they were no longer alone in the universe. But amidst the uncertainty, one thing became clear. Humanity couldn't afford to wait passively for the next move. If Earth was going to survive, it needed to prepare for anything. Dr. Elena Vasquez found herself at the center of this effort. Her bold decision to showcase humanity's history had earned her both praise and criticism, but she refused to dwell on either. Instead, she focused on understanding the aliens' behavior. Their choice to highlight humanity's flaws suggested they saw Earth as a potential threat not because of its technology, but because of its unpredictability. To them, humans weren't just primitive. They were dangerous. They think we're chaotic. Elena explained during a meeting with Marcus Lee and other key figures from the Space Defense Initiative, SDI. The chaos is only part of the story. What they don't understand is that our chaos is also our strength. We adapt, we innovate, and when we're pushed, we find ways to rise. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. As a soldier, he understood the value of resilience under pressure. But adapting to an enemy you barely understood was easier said than done. So how do we show them that? He asked. How do we turn their confusion into respect? Elena smiled faintly. By doing what we do best, creating solutions out of thin air. Her plan was ambitious. Rather than focusing solely on weapons or defense systems, Elena proposed building something entirely new, a global network designed to unify humanity's collective knowledge and resources. Dubbed the Unity Grid, it would combine scientific research, cultural insights, and even artistic expression into a single platform accessible to everyone on Earth. The goal wasn't just practical, it was symbolic. By working together, humanity could demonstrate not only its ingenuity but also its capacity for unity despite its differences. The project faced skepticism from some quarters. Critics argued that such an undertaking would take years to complete, time Earth might not have. Others worried about the logistical challenges of coordinating efforts across nations with competing interests. But Elena's vision struck a chord with many, especially after footage of the Rio encounter went viral. Seeing the aliens' reaction to humanity's shared history reminded people of what they stood to lose if they didn't come together. Work on the Unity Grid began immediately. fueled by unprecedented cooperation between governments, corporations, and grassroots organizations. Engineers collaborated with artists, physicists teamed up with philosophers, and students around the world contributed ideas via online forums. It was messy, chaotic, and imperfect, but it worked. Slowly but surely, the grid took shape, becoming a digital mosaic of human achievement and aspiration. Meanwhile, the skies above Earth remained eerily quiet. No further ships appeared, and the Galactic Council offered no explanation for their earlier visit. Some speculated that the aliens were deliberating humanity's fate, while others feared they were preparing for war. Whatever the truth, the lack of communication only heightened tensions. Then came the revelation. One night, astronomers monitoring deep space signals detected a massive object approaching Earth's solar system. Initial scans suggested it was far larger than any of the ships seen before, a structure so vast it dwarfed entire planets. Dubbed a Leviathan by the media, the object moved with deliberate slowness, as though giving humanity time to react. Panic spread once again, but this time there was a difference. Thanks to the Unity Grid, humanity responded with remarkable speed and coordination. Scientists used the grid to share data and develop strategies, while engineers worked around the clock to enhance Earth's defenses. Artists and writers contributed by creating messages of hope and defiance, which were broadcast into space alongside technical transmissions. As the Leviathan drew closer, its purpose became apparent. It wasn't a weapon, it was a probe, scanning Earth with unparalleled precision. Every city, forest, ocean, and desert was cataloged in excruciating detail. The aliens weren't attacking. They were studying, but why? Elena believed the answer lay in humanity's recent actions. "They're trying to understand us," she told Marcus during a late-night discussion. "Our culture, our technology, our relationships, all of it. They see us as a puzzle, and they're determined to solve it." Marcus frowned. "And if they don't like what they find, then we'll have to prove them wrong," Elena replied firmly. "We've already shown them we're not afraid to stand our ground. Now we need to show them we're worth respecting." As the Leviathan continued its methodical scan, humanity braced itself for the next phase of the encounter. The stakes were higher than ever, but so was the resolve of those fighting to protect Earth. For the first time, the galaxy was witnessing not just humanity's flaws, but its boundless potential, and somewhere among the stars, the Galactic Council watched and waited to see what Earth would do next. The Leviathan's presence in Earth's solar system loomed like a shadow over humanity. Its silent, relentless scanning of the planet continued day after day, leaving people uneasy but also determined. The sheer scale of the alien probe was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. A reminder of just how small Earth was in the grand scheme of the universe. Yet, despite its intimidating size, it hadn't attacked or issued further threats. Instead, it seemed to be observing, cataloging, and analyzing every aspect of human life. For weeks, scientists worked tirelessly to decipher patterns in the data being sent back by the Leviathan. They noticed subtle changes in its behavior, how it lingered longer over certain cities, forests, and oceans, as if searching for something specific. Some speculated that it was studying humanity's technological advancements, while others believed it was trying to understand cultural nuances. Whatever the case, one thing was clear: the aliens weren't merely collecting information, they were learning. Meanwhile, the Unity Grid had become more than just a tool. It was a lifeline. It connected billions of people across the globe, fostering collaboration on an unprecedented scale. Engineers shared blueprints for new defense systems, doctors exchanged ideas for medical innovations, and artists created works inspired by humanity's resilience. Even children contributed drawings and messages of hope, which were uploaded to satellites and broadcast into space. Humanity wasn't just preparing for war, it was showcasing its soul, but not everyone was united. Tensions simmered beneath the surface as some nations grew wary of sharing resources and knowledge. Old rivalries threatened to resurface, fueled by fears that cooperation might leave them vulnerable. Marcus Lee found himself caught in the middle of these disputes. tasked with mediating between leaders who couldn't agree on how best to respond to the looming threat. "It's like herding cats," he muttered during a tense meeting at SDI headquarters. "Half of them want to build weapons, the other half want to send love letters to the stars." Elena Vasquez, ever the voice of reason, tried to bridge the divide. "We can do both," she insisted. "Strength doesn't mean abandoning compassion, and unity doesn't mean giving up individuality. That's what makes us human." Her words resonated with many, but not all. Just when it seemed like progress was stalling, an unexpected breakthrough occurred, one that would change everything. It started with a signal late one night. Astronomers monitoring the Leviathan detected a transmission emanating from the probe. Unlike the previous cryptic glyphs, this message was direct and unmistakable. When decoded, it revealed coordinates pointing to a location deep within Earth's atmosphere, an area near Antarctica known as the Southern Ocean. At first, no one knew what to make of it. Was it a trap? A test? Or perhaps an invitation? Curiosity outweighed caution. A team led by Elena and Marcus set out to investigate, traveling aboard a state-of-the-art research vessel equipped with cutting-edge technology developed through the Unity grid. As they approached the designated coordinates, the water began to shimmer unnaturally, as though disturbed by an invisible force. Then, without warning, a massive structure rose from the depths, a crystalline spire pulsating with light. The sight left the crew speechless. The spire appeared to be made of the same material that had transformed Rio de Janeiro's Christ, the Redeemer statue, months earlier. But this time, it wasn't static, it was alive, shifting and glowing in response to their presence. Before anyone could react, the spire emitted a series of tones similar to those used by the aliens during their encounter in Rio. This time, however, the message was accompanied by visuals projected onto the surrounding clouds. Images of Earth's past, present, and potential future unfolded before their eyes, a timeline showing humanity's evolution, alongside glimpses of what could happen if they continued down their current path. The visions were equal parts beautiful and haunting. They depicted moments of triumph, advancements in science, art, and peace, but also stark warnings of environmental collapse, conflict, and self-destruction. The final image showed two paths diverging, one leading to harmony and growth, the other to ruin. When the projections faded, silence fell over the crew. No one spoke for several minutes, each person grappling with what they had seen. Finally, Elena broke the quiet. "They're not here to destroy us," she said softly. "They're here to decide whether we deserve to survive." Marcus frowned, his mind racing. "So what does that mean? Are we passing or failing?" "I think," Elena replied, her voice tinged with determination, "that's up to us." As the team returned to shore, news of the discovery spread rapidly. The crystalline spire became a symbol of humanity's crossroads, a tangible representation of the choice facing every person on Earth. Governments convened emergency summits. Activists organized global protests calling for change and ordinary. Citizens took to social media to share their thoughts and hopes. For the first time, the Galactic Council's intentions felt less like a threat and more like a challenge. The aliens weren't judging humanity based on its flaws alone, they were testing its ability to adapt, grow, and overcome. And slowly, the tide began to turn, inspired by the spire's message. Nations redoubled their efforts to address long-standing issues. Climate initiatives gained momentum, conflicts saw tentative steps toward resolution, and communities came together to support one another. Humanity wasn't perfect, but it was trying, and that effort resonated deeply with those watching from afar. Somewhere among the stars, the Galactic Council observed these developments with growing curiosity. For centuries, they had dismissed Earth as chaotic and unworthy of attention. Now, they were beginning to see something different, something unexpected. Humanity wasn't just surviving. It was thriving in the face of adversity, proving that even in the darkest moments, there was light. And as the world rallied around the Unity grid and the lessons of the spire, one truth became undeniable. Earth was ready to fight, not just for its survival, but for its future. The crystalline spire in the Southern Ocean had become a beacon of hope and a stark reminder of humanity's precarious position. Its presence loomed large, both physically and metaphorically, as people around the world grappled with the realization that their fate depended not on weapons or technology, but on their ability to unite and evolve. The message it conveyed was clear: Earth survival hinged on its capacity for change, growth, and resilience. Yet, despite the newfound sense of purpose, cracks began to form beneath the surface. The pressure mounted as nations struggled to balance competing interests while addressing global challenges. Some governments prioritized economic stability over environmental reforms, fearing that drastic measures would destabilize their populations. Others hesitated to share resources or intelligence, clinging to old fears and rivalries even as the alien threat loomed larger than ever. Marcus Lee found himself at the heart of these tensions. As leader of the Space Defense Initiative, SDI, he was tasked with coordinating efforts between military forces, scientists, and civilian organizations. It was a role he hadn't asked for, but one he embraced with quiet determination. Still, the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on him. "They're waiting," Marcus said during a late-night briefing at SDI headquarters. "The aliens, they're watching us, testing us. And every day we argue about who gets what or whose plan is better, they see it. They see our divisions." Elena Vasquez nodded grimly. She had seen the same thing reflected in the data streaming. From the Unity grid, while billions of people were working together toward common goals, pockets of resistance remained. Old habits died hard, especially when fear and uncertainty clouded judgment. "Change isn't easy," she admitted. "But if we don't act now, if we can't show them that we're capable of moving forward, then all this effort will be for nothing." Her words struck a chord with those present, yet they also underscored the enormity of the task ahead. Humanity wasn't just fighting an external enemy. It was battling its own flaws and limitations. Every step forward felt like 2 steps back. Then came the turning point. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, astronomers monitoring the Leviathan detected unusual activity. The massive probe, which had been orbiting Saturn for weeks, suddenly changed course. Within hours, it was heading directly toward Earth at unprecedented speed. Panic rippled across the globe as news outlets broadcast live footage of the approaching behemoth. "This is it," muttered Marcus, staring at the screen displaying the incoming object. "They've made their decision." Elena placed a hand on his shoulder. "Not yet. There's still time." Her calm demeanor masked her own anxiety, but she refused to give in to despair. Instead, she rallied the team, urging them to focus on what they could control rather than what they couldn't. Together, they devised a bold plan, one that combined science, creativity, and raw human spirit. Using the Unity grid, Elena coordinated a global response unlike anything the world had ever seen. Engineers worked around the clock to deploy satellites equipped with powerful transmitters capable of broadcasting messages into space. Artists, musicians, and writers contributed pieces designed to showcase humanity's diversity and ingenuity. Meanwhile, activists organized mass gatherings in cities worldwide, where millions of people held up signs bearing messages of peace, unity, and defiance. "We're not just sending signals," Elena explained during a televised address. "We're showing them who we are, not perfect, but determined. Not flawless, but unbreakable." As preparations unfolded, something remarkable happened. Nations that had previously resisted collaboration began to open their borders and share resources. Corporations donated funds and materials to support the effort. Even individuals who had once felt powerless found ways to contribute, whether by volunteering, spreading awareness online, or simply lighting candles in solidarity. By the time the Leviathan entered Earth's atmosphere, humanity was ready, or as ready as it could be. The alien probe descended slowly, its massive form blotting out the sky above Antarctica. For a moment, it seemed poised to unleash destruction. But instead of attacking, it emitted a low hum that resonated across the planet. Then, without warning, it split apart, revealing countless smaller drones that scattered in every direction. The drones didn't attack either. Instead, they began interacting with the environment hovering over cities, forests, and oceans, collecting data and observing human activity. It was as though the Galactic Council wanted one final glimpse of Earth. Before making its verdict, tension reached a fever pitch as the drones continued their work. People gathered in public squares, holding hands and singing songs of hope. Others prayed silently, seeking solace in faith. Despite the uncertainty, there was a palpable sense of unity, a shared understanding that whatever happened next, humanity would face it together. And then, just as suddenly as they had arrived, the drones reassembled into the Leviathan. The massive structure hovered silently for several minutes before ascending back into space. As it disappeared beyond the atmosphere, the skies cleared, leaving behind an eerie silence. Had humanity passed the test, or failed? No one knew for sure. But as dawn broke over the horizon, painting the world in soft hues of gold and pink, a feeling of cautious optimism began to take root. The aliens had left without issuing a verdict, but they had also left without destroying Earth. For now, that was enough. Somewhere among the stars, the Galactic Council watched and waited. They had seen glimpses of humanity's potential, but they weren't fully convinced. What they needed was proof not just of strength or intelligence, but of heart. And humanity was about to give it to them. The departure of the Leviathan left Earth suspended in a fragile limbo. Humanity had survived the encounter, but the absence of closure only deepened the uncertainty. Was this a reprieve or merely a pause before judgment? The Galactic Council's silence was deafening, and for weeks the world held its breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. But amidst the tension, something extraordinary began to unfold. The Unity Grid, which had been created as a tool for collaboration, evolved into something far greater. It became a living testament to humanity's ability to adapt, innovate, and unite under pressure. People from every corner of the globe poured their energy into the project, contributing ideas, resources, and acts of kindness that transcended borders and ideologies. Engineers developed new technologies to address environmental challenges. Artists created works that celebrated diversity and resilience. And ordinary citizens found ways to make a difference, no matter how small. Elena Vasquez watched it all with a mixture of awe and pride. She had always believed in humanity's potential, but seeing it in action on such a massive scale was humbling. Yet she knew that this wasn't just about survival. It was about proving to the aliens and perhaps to themselves that humanity deserved a place among the stars. They're still watching, Elena said during a meeting with Marcus Lee and other key figures at SDI headquarters. Even if they've gone silent, they're analyzing everything we do. Every decision, every act of courage or compassionate matters. Marcus nodded, his expression grim but resolute. So what's our next move? We can't just sit here and wait for them to come back. Elena smiled faintly. We don't have to. Let's show them what happens when humans work together, not because we're forced to, but because we choose to. Her plan was bold, even by her standards. Using the Unity Grid, she proposed creating a global event unlike anything the world had ever seen, a simultaneous display of human ingenuity, creativity, and unity designed to send an unambiguous message to the Galactic Council. The event would take place across multiple locations worldwide. Synchronized through the grid to ensure maximum impact, preparations began immediately. Scientists worked tirelessly to develop a network of satellites capable of projecting images and sounds into space with unprecedented clarity. Artists collaborated on massive installations that combined light, sound, and movement to convey humanity's story. Musicians composed symphonies that blended traditional instruments with modern technology, while writers crafted poems and essays celebrating the beauty of life on Earth. At the same time, grassroots movements sprang up around the globe, organizing community events where people could contribute their own voices to the effort. From children drawing pictures of their dreams for the future to elders sharing stories of resilience and hope, everyone had a role to play. The culmination of these efforts came on a single night, a night chosen not for its astronomical significance, but for its symbolism. Dubbed Unity Day, the event coincided with the spring equinox, a time of renewal and balance. As darkness fell over the planet, cities lit up in dazzling displays of color and light. In New York, skyscrapers were transformed into towering canvases, depicting scenes of peace and progress. In Rio de Janeiro, dancers performed intricate routines choreographed to reflect humanity's shared rhythms. And in remote villages across Africa and Asia, lanterns were released into the sky, each one carrying a handwritten message of hope. But the centerpiece of Unity Day was something far more ambitious: a coordinated transmission broadcast directly into space. Using the satellite network, humanity sent a message unlike any before it, one that combined music, art, science, and emotion into a single, cohesive statement. At its core was a simple yet profound declaration: we are flawed, but we are learning. We are divided, but we are striving to come together. We are human, and we will never stop reaching for the stars. As the transmission echoed into the cosmos, something remarkable happened. The crystalline spire in the Southern Ocean began to glow brighter than ever before, its surface shimmering with colors that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the broadcast. For a moment, it felt as though the entire planet was holding its breath. Then, without warning, the spire emitted a burst of light so intense it illuminated the surrounding oceans. When the glow faded, a holographic figure appeared above the structure, a being tall and ethereal, clad in robes that shifted like liquid starlight. Its face was serene, yet its eyes held an ancient wisdom that made those who saw it feel both insignificant and profoundly understood. The being spoke not in words, but in a series of resonant tones that translated instantly into every language via the Unity grid. Its message was brief but unforgettable. You have shown us your chaos, your fragility, and your strength. You are a paradox, a species capable of destruction yet driven by creation. We underestimated you once. Do not let us do so again. With that, the figure vanished, and the spire returned to its dormant state. Silence fell over the world as people processed what they had witnessed. Had humanity passed the test? Or was this merely another step in the aliens' evaluation? Elena stood near the edge of the ocean, tears streaming down her face as she gazed at the now quiet spire. Beside her, Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder. "What do you think it means?" he asked softly. She took a deep breath, her voice steady, despite the emotions coursing through her. "It means they see us now not as children, but as equals. Not perfect, but worthy." Somewhere among the stars, the Galactic Council observed the aftermath of Unity Day with growing respect. They had come to judge humanity, expecting to find a fractured and unworthy species. Instead, they discovered something unexpected: a race defined not by its flaws, but by its boundless capacity for growth and connection. And as the echoes of humanity's message spread across the galaxy, one truth became undeniable: Earth was no longer an insignificant speck in the cosmos. It was a beacon, a shining example of what could be achieved when chaos gave way to harmony and fear was replaced by hope. Humanity had proven itself. But the real question was whether the aliens were ready to accept them as part of the galactic family. In the weeks following Unity Day, Earth felt different, not just in its skies, which remained eerily quiet, but in the hearts of its people. The message from the crystalline spire had stirred something profound within humanity, a realization that their actions mattered not only to themselves, but to the vast, unknowable universe beyond. For the first time, the planet seemed united, not by fear of annihilation, but by a shared sense of purpose. The Galactic Council's response, or lack thereof, was both frustrating and telling. No ships returned, no further threats were issued, and the skies above Earth remained clear. Some interpreted this as indifference, others saw it as acceptance. But for Elena Vasquez, Marcus Lee, and countless others who had poured their souls into defending humanity, the silence carried a deeper meaning. It wasn't abandonment, it was acknowledgement. "They're giving us space," Elena said during a press conference held at the United Nations headquarters. "Not because they don't care, but because they trust us to keep going. They've seen what we can do when we work together. Now it's up to us to prove them right." Her words resonated across the globe. While some feared the unknown future, many more embraced it with cautious optimism. Humanity had faced its greatest trial yet and emerged stronger, not through brute force or technological superiority, but through creativity, empathy, and resilience. The lesson was clear: strength lay not in perfection, but in imperfection managed with courage and unity. As months turned into years, life on Earth began to change in subtle but significant ways. The Unity Grid, once a tool born of desperation, became a permanent fixture of global society. It connected nations, communities, and individuals in ways that transcended borders and ideologies. Environmental initiatives gained momentum, driven by a renewed commitment to preserving the planet for future generations. Conflicts that had simmered for decades saw tentative steps toward resolution. Fueled by a collective desire to focus on progress rather than division, artists continued to contribute to the grid, creating works inspired by humanity's encounter with the Galactic Council. One particularly poignant piece of mural painted on the side of a building in Rio de Janeiro depicted the crystalline spire surrounded by figures of all ages, races, and backgrounds, their hands reaching skyward. In unity, beneath it, a single phrase was written in bold letters, "We are one." Meanwhile, scientists worked tirelessly to decode the full implications of the aliens' message. Though much of it remained shrouded in mystery, one detail stood out: the holographic figure's final words, "Do not let us do so again." 2. Many, it felt like a challenge and invitation to continue growing, learning, and proving that humanity deserved its place among the stars. Marcus Lee found himself reflecting often on those words. Once a soldier trained to fight battles, he now saw his role differently. He had spent years preparing for war, only to discover that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't firepower, it was heart. "It's funny," he mused during a quiet moment aboard the SDI's headquarters. "All this time we thought they were testing us to see if we were strong enough. Turns out they were testing us to see if we were human enough." Elena nodded, her gaze fixed on the night sky visible through the window. "Maybe that's the real test for everyone. Not just us?" Years passed, and though no new contact came from the Galactic Council, humanity never stopped looking outward. Space exploration entered a golden age, fueled by advancements developed through the Unity Grid. Missions to Mars, Europa, and beyond became routine, each step bringing Earth closer to understanding its place in the cosmos. And while the fear of alien intervention lingered in the back of people's minds, it no longer paralyzed them. Instead, it inspired them to dream bigger, reach farther, and strive harder. One evening, decades after Unity Day, Elena stood atop a hill overlooking a small village nestled in the mountains. She was older now, her hair streaked with silver, but her eyes still sparkled with the same determination that had guided her through humanity's darkest hour. Beside her stood Marcus, his weathered face softened by a rare smile. "You ever wonder what they're thinking?" Marcus asked, nodding toward the stars. Elena chuckled softly. "Every day. But I think about something else, too, what we're thinking. We proved to them that we're worth noticing. Now we have to prove it to ourselves." As they gazed upward, a meteor streaked across the sky, leaving behind a trail of light that lingered for several seconds before fading away. It was a fleeting moment, yet it felt symbolic, a reminder that even in the vastness of the universe, every spark mattered. Somewhere among the stars, the Galactic Council watched silently. They had come seeking answers about Earth and left with questions instead. Questions about chaos and order, fragility and strength, fear and hope. Humanity hadn't given them definitive solutions, but perhaps that was the point. Growth wasn't about finding final answers. It was about embracing the journey. And so, under the watchful eyes of the cosmos, humanity continued to grow. Flawed, imperfect, and endlessly resilient. They reached for the stars not because they were promised salvation, but because they believed in the infinite possibilities of tomorrow. The final lines of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony echoed faintly in Elena's mind as she turned to leave the hilltop, hand in hand with Marcus, Ode to joy, ode to humanity. Together we rise, Earth. was no longer alone in the galaxy, and neither was it afraid.